that's going, I'm going to hit start webinar. And then
Okay.
after I hit start webinar, I'm going to hit record to
We're
the
live.
cloud.
We're live on YouTube.
All right.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to go live. I'm getting ready to go live on YouTube.
No, you're already live on YouTube. Uh, how do you become conscious of your subconscious mind? Hi, my name is Ann McNeil, and I am the Master Wealth Builder, helping to build stronger and better lives and businesses. And my question to you today is, did you know that you have two minds? Yes, you have two. One is a conscious and one's a subconscious. But you also have two lives that you're living. Yes, one is an internal life and the other is an external life. We're going to share with you today how to tap into your subconscious and your inner life to achieve your desires and your goals. Our subject today from the book Think and Grow Rich, the principle we are discussing today is the autosuggestion principle. And that principle can be whatever it is that you are reciting, affirming, deciding, if you will. It is also called the medium for influencing your subconscious mind. Napoleon Hill calls this the third step to riches. He also says that autosuggestion really is a term that applies to all suggestions. And he says self-suggestion. I'd like to suggest also that it's all, whether you realize it or not, these off words that we say, that we share. But I would be remiss if I continued without bringing on our co-host. So let me introduce none other than Galen Bingham first, and then Dr. Peter James, because we have a very special guest today that you all came here to hear. And we're going to talk with him shortly, Mr. Dill. But good morning, Galen. Good morning, Peter. How are you both this morning?
Fantastic. I'm doing pretty good. I'm not doing quite as good as Dr. Peter, but I'm going to let him share. This is an incredibly important chapter because I don't know that people realize that you are what you believe you are. And the way you influence your belief more times than not is what you say to yourself. What you say to yourself out loud, what do you say to yourself in your mind? But the words you share informs what you actually believe, and what you believe you are. So we really need to be mindful of those things that we say about ourselves, even in jest, even in joking, even as a throwaway conversation with your friends at the barbershop. You need to be careful because what you believe you are. So I can't wait to get into this conversation. Our guest is an amazing expert in this space, and can't wait to get in. Dr. Peter.
Yeah, good stuff there, Galen. I'm so excited to be back after a 2-week hiatus. Yes, I have a new role in life there, Galen. Don't just call me Dr. Peter A. James. Please call me Grandfather Peter A. James or Grandpa or Pop Pop or whatever you want to call it. But I'm excited to be back with you all for sure. Galen, I want to piggyback on exactly what you just said there. And I want to take it a step further because in this chapter of Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill says this is the chapter that represents the keystone in the arch of Think and Grow Rich philosophy. And this is autosuggestion. And Galen, yeah, it's so important to understand what we're saying, what we're listening to, who we're communicating with, which is also why it's important who we surround ourselves with on a regular basis, right? It's so important to the conversations, the dialogue, the negative speak that almost becomes second nature in our families, our upbringings. How is that permeating into our lives, into our careers, into our relationships, our businesses for that matter? So I'm excited to dive on in with our special guest today. Great stuff. Great to be back. Ann McNeil, what do you think?
All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Well, today we are speaking with Michael Dill. Michael, come on, let's talk about, let me share a little bit about who you are, and then we're going to ask you to share. So Michael Dill was born in Providence, Rhode Island in, yes, 1958. He's known as Coach Michael, an award-winning certified business coach, global speaker, published author, and proud action coach of a franchise partner. Michael, I could go on and on, but I would like to just share with everybody a little bit more about your bio later. But I'm going to ask you if you would share with us, just kind of go back a little bit about when you were first introduced to this principle. We'll talk about the book later, but this principle, and really beginning to realize that there was something that exists called autosuggestion or self-suggestion, or how you were connecting those dots, if you will. So can you take us back to your first memory of this principle?
Certainly. First of all, thank you for having me as a host guest today. Really excited. I believe I'd have to go back to 1990 when I did Tony Robbins' 30-day program. And that was the first time, my introduction to self-improvement and really taking a step back and look in the mirror. And I remember going to one of his power weekends where we walk across hot coals. And what was very interesting, Ann, is Tony was up on stage with 6,000 people in the room, and he had everyone stand up, and he said, "Everyone close your eyes." And he started projecting their thoughts of where he wanted them to go and what to think, so they could start thinking positive and seeing more in themselves, and they see more in themselves than they would normally not. And I, being a seeker of truth, I had one eye closed and one eye open. And I'm looking at one man having the power to condition 6,000 by projecting their thoughts. And I immediately thought, like, I got to learn how to do that. That's pretty cool. And then my second book was Psychology of Winning by Dennis Waitley. And then I picked up Think and Grow Rich quite a long time ago, and this is an actual copy of my original book. And the journey really started when I hired a particular coach 9 years ago, and she asked me a simple question. She said, "Michael, you ever read the book Think and Grow Rich?" I'm like, "Of course I've had." She goes, "Well, great. How many times you read it?" I'm like, "Well, Heather, my book is falling apart. I've probably read it about 20 times. I listened to the cassette tapes back and forth to work. I was a financial advisor. I need to project my mind of thinking wealth and abundance." She goes, "Great. So you read the book 20 times. Did you read the book the way the book was supposed to be read?" I didn't even know how to answer that question, so the answer had to be no. And she said, "Well, one of the principles, chapter 10, is mastermind. And mastermind is where two or more people are in harmony in the same conversation directed towards the same outcome. And only then will you reach infinite intelligence where all the knowledge is. So how could you possibly apply one of the principles of the book if you read it alone? I'm like, okay, touche, good question. No answer. And the second question, she goes, great, you read the book 20 times. So what's the secret? Once again, crickets. The secret? She goes, yeah, the secret. And I didn't have an answer. She goes, you did read the preface. I said, of course. She goes, well, I invite you to go back and read the preface and highlight with a yellow marker how many times it says a secret. And I highlighted it 23 times. So I'm thinking, okay, I read a book for 20 times. It positioned me 23 times per read that there's a secret coming. And I read the book alone and absolutely positively missed it. And if Napoleon Hill took 25 years of his life to study success and give us the clues, perhaps we should follow the instructions in the book. So for 8 years now, I've been doing a 12-week deep dive mastermind book study on Think and Grow Rich because I read the book the way it was supposed to be read with a group. And I will say the first time I read it that way, I compare it to the Super Bowl kickoff when all the lights are flashing and everyone's taking a picture at the same time. That's what was happening to my brain. So and first chapter is Thoughts Are Things. And the power of our thought is the most powerful thing we can control. And, some people we all have different jobs. We're not out on I-95 in the middle of the day and the heat laying tar. All we have to do as individuals is find ways of controlling our mind and thinking right. Because when we do that, we put ourselves in a zone, and we're in a zone, everything else takes care of itself. And I really believe people underestimate the power of the subconscious mind and how to program the mind to think right. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Yes?
Listen, you just teed the ball up. Now we are going to do a layup, and then we're going to hit a home run right after we do the video that talks about the 13 principles. And so with that thought in mind, I'm going to go to, yes, the one that has the broadest smile, Papa.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Listen, I love that the use of sports athletics from the golf to the basketball. I think I heard some football in there. And wow, you're doing it this morning. This video we're getting ready to watch, we watch it every single week. And it really dives into these chapters. It gives us an overview of these chapters. Let me say that for sure. I'm hoping that as people listen and watch, that it's the beginning of the next step for them, to even what Michael so far has even touched on, to don't just stop with the video, but now begin to make it a part of your existence, a part of your repertoire to a certain extent. And so now this is the opportunity to begin that journey this weekend and begin to think and grow rich. But first, before you grow rich, begin to think that way. Think that way. So without further ado, let's go ahead and listen to this video.
One is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts. the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
All right. Dr. Peter James, were you? Yes, thank you.
No problem at all. Good stuff, folks. Again, as I mentioned before the video, the video provides a great overview. Now you have to ask yourselves, what do you want to do with this? What do you want to do next? I highly encourage, if you have not secured a copy of this phenomenal text by Napoleon Hill, today is your day. Please get to Amazon.com. We'll try to actually drop a link in the chat for you all for sure. Also, those of you who are watching via YouTube, definitely please ensure that you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Today's show is going to be phenomenal. I see Doretha, Carla, Wyman's on here. Jason, good morning to you all. Cindy, see you this morning. Shannon, thank you so much for joining us. And let's dive on into this conversation because I know it's going to be a great one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to start by asking everybody if you are aware of this invisible field of energy that exists in us and also surrounding us. And if you are not, then you may want to begin to research this principle of autosuggestion. Now, let me go back to you, Michael, and just for those of you who might be joining us, just joining us, I mean, like just joining us, we're talking with Michael Dill. And Michael Dill is a coach, phenomenal, if you will. He's also the president of Power and Ice Wealth Creation, a strategic leadership company. He's a member of the National Speakers Association, Gold Coast Builders Association, National Association of Home Builders, yay, and also Real Meat Lovers Club. He's involved with several charities and several organizations, especially the ones that he is helping to build. So, Michael, let's take us back. We started talking about your first introduction to this principle. Now, can you share with us, excuse me, how you use this auto-suggestion principle? If you can give us an example, if you will, of some, maybe an affirmation or a quote or whatever works for you that you are actually using to impact your subconscious mind with this principle
Absolutely.
of auto-suggestion.
Well, I believe in chapter 3, they have a success formula, the 5 steps. And so in the morning, I walk around my pool. I have certain questions I ask myself every day. The first 2 questions are, what am I happy about? What am I excited about? So I program my mind through questions and what am I happy about? I'm happy it's a beautiful day. I get to speak on this mastermind group today and share some wisdom and get some wisdom back. So as we ask questions, we could program our mind. And then I do the success formula, the confidence formula from Think and Grow Rich. And then I read my 6 steps of what I want to acquire as far as wealth, what I'm going to do in return for it. So very simply, I follow the principles within the book. And as we're speaking and we're talking about subconscious mind, on my desk, I have this pencil and it says, I have $1 million attitude. Now, I don't know how old this pencil is, and I know it's been there for a long time, but I had this pencil before I had a net worth of over $1 million. So I always had the $1 million attitude, and also the subconscious mind right below that is I had $1 million bill. So I've been looking and reading this stuff every single day for years and years and years and years before I actually had what I was reading. So I programmed my mind to believe and just follow the principles within the book. And now I have everything that I was talking about years ago. So now I read it every day to get more. And it's not just money. Think and Grow Rich is not just about the money. It's about everything. It's about everything you want in your life. So, like I said before, the mind is a powerful thing. And I have so many affirmations I read. I mean, I'm an amazing coach doing amazing things with amazing clients who are getting amazing results. I'm an amazing man living an amazing life with my amazing wife. So you can project your subconscious mind because your subconscious mind is working 24/7, picking up whatever you are saying, thinking, hearing. So you might as well put the right stuff in there to get your subconscious mind to work for you. And that's a discipline that we must apply daily to get our mind to work in our favor.
Wow, I see Galen smiling broadly. So Galen, before you make your comment, I do want to recognize our Laverne Blackwood in the studio with us, and want to encourage any and all of you, if you're interested in being a part of the studio, we do share that link on all the social media, and so you can always join us in the studio in addition to being on YouTube. So thank you, Laverne, for being here. And if you have a question, Laverne, please put it in the chat. And all of you, please put your questions in the chat. And we want to encourage everybody to please subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that thumbs up button. All right, Galen.
Yeah, hey, I just want to first of all acknowledge, Michael, that this is an amazing conversation. So thank you so much for sharing your insight and your perspective. And it just occurred to me that we're all coaches on this show. We're all coaches, so we all talk about how important mindset is, how important it is to say positive things to yourself. So I want to ask Michael in particular, but everyone, how frequently do you have negative thoughts? Because the book even says success doesn't come from never having a negative thought. It's how quickly can you reframe that thought? How quickly can you bounce back and redirect that thought? Because I love when Napoleon Hill says that thoughts are things and two things can't hold the same space at the same time. So the way you get out of that negative thought is to replace it with a positive thought. But we all talk about this stuff. I'm going to tell you that I'm not a professional at never ever having a negative thought. How easy is it for you to have a negative thought, but then redirect it, Michael?
I think because over the years, we direct ourselves with the discipline of only letting what goes on our mind that serves us. And yes, a negative thought's going to come in, but now we have the tools. That negative thought is there for a reason. We analyze it quickly. Why is this here? And then immediately shift to the tools to turn that into a positive thought. Otherwise, if we don't have the discipline to do that, that negative thought could expand, and all of a sudden we're thinking about a whole host of different things. And again, it goes back to that if we have one power that we can control, and it's the most important power that we need to control, and that's the power of our own thoughts. When we understand that, that's the first thing that we need to control, then we begin to have the discipline and the tools to shift into positive thought when something negative is showing up.
I love that. I love the way that you said that. And I love the fact that you didn't say, just reject negative thoughts, just kick them out of your mind, put up a guard against negative thoughts. Because when we try to reject and keep negative thoughts from coming in, we start thinking about the negative thoughts, and then we start judging ourselves for having the negative thought rather than understanding, why is it there? Why am I having this thought? Let's evaluate, what is this thought trying to keep me and protect me from, and then shift it to a different conversation. Peter, you gotta love all this conversation about shifting your mindset.
I love it. I love it, Galen. It actually made me think about times when I had negative thoughts. So Michael, I want you to come in, and I'm going to ask you that question, but I want to reflect on my times when I've had negative thoughts and then what I did to overcome them. And so whether it was the what if questions that we have in our heads, what if this doesn't go the way that we desire it to? What are we going to do? What's going to happen? What if something horrible happens to us when we go to this event, to this place? What am I going to do? How am I going to react? What if something happens to my loved ones? What if I lose my job? Right? But some of us, and I've thought of all of those things, honestly, there for all of you listening, but some of us don't stop at just that thought. We let it run. We let it affect our day. We let it take control of our lives. And I think, what I have noticed within me, especially from this text, but also especially from surrounding myself with the Galen Binghams, the Ann McNeils, and other like-minded individuals who are on the same trajectory, that thought doesn't stay long. It's in and out, and it's replaced with that positive type of message. Michael, I would love to hear that from you, and what that might have looked like for you at some stage of your life or your career, for that matter, if that's
Oh,
okay.
absolutely. Well, first, I think the biggest thing that Think and Grow Rich, I don't know exactly where it is, but it talks about the fact that what you think about most, mixed with emotion and backed by faith, will transmute itself into the physical equivalent or reality. So whatever we're thinking about most, backed with emotion and faith, it's going to create the reality. Now, it doesn't distinguish whether it's positive or negative. And then as you go through that, like when we're on a roll and no one can say no and everything's clicking, you are in the zone. What do you think about most? Like, man, I am on my game. Your emotion, you're jacked up, you juiced up, backed by faith. Your bank account is growing. So you get more of it. Let's say you're stuck. Oh my God, nothing's working out my way. Murphy's Law is around every corner. What you think about most is everything's going wrong. Your emotion is frustration, is backed by faith. You have the amazing shrinking bank account, nothing's going your way. So you produce more of that. Now, the flip side of this, Napoleon Hill says that poverty consciousness and negative thoughts need no permission to enter our brain. Wealth consciousness and positive thoughts needs to be conditioned. So when you get this education and you realize that if you don't not have a discipline to condition your mind daily for wealth, abundance, gratitude, and all the things you want in your life that's going right, you are going to leave room for the noise. And we all know there's plenty of noise out there to manipulate your mind. So when I understand that and where it really played in my life, my first year in business in 2012, 7 months in, I had a brother commit suicide. Mm. And I will tell you, it unraveled me to my core where I was an absolute basket case. And then I got a coach and worked myself up. And 2.5 years later, I was up on stage as Coach of the Year. But I realized through that whole journey, it's not necessarily my brother committing suicide. It was my thoughts and my mind around, as I was spiraling down, my thought process was taking me down. And as I worked myself up, my thought process took me up. So now, understanding what you think about most and all what I just said, and going through the spiral down, having my mind work against me, and the move up to my mind work for me, I know now that my most important tool is for me to control my mind. And I much rather be where I am now than where I was when I was struggling. So when people really get their head wrapped around the fact that they must control their thoughts and put whatever disciplines, affirmations, whatever it may be that they need to do to think right, then they will get the secret of life, and then they will begin to attract everything they've been waiting for their entire life.
I love that. Hey, let me jump in right quick because we've been talking a lot about the book Think and Grow Rich. Obviously, that's the show, but there's some neuroscience that supports exactly what Michael just said. You know, one of the concepts that I keep thinking about is this idea of the confirmation bias. Our brain is so wired that we want to be right. Our brain always wants to be right. So once it has a thought, once you let the thought get into the brain about what you believe about the world or your situation or who you are, your brain is going to automatically find evidence to support what you already believe. So the way to get out of that is to do just what Michael said. Start thinking about something else that you believe to be true about your life, the world, or the situation. And again, your brain will then start finding evidence to prove how that's true. So I just couldn't resist the temptation to share how this seems to be a universal truth, not only supported by Napoleon Hill, but supported by neuroscience.
Now, there was another book that Napoleon Hill wrote called Outwitting the Devil. It was ready to go in 1937, just when Think and Grow Rich was published, but his wife said, do not ever do that. And then I think Sharon Lechner came in and published it in 2017. And there was 3 points I picked up from this book, and it really outlines everything. And Napoleon Hill had an interview with the devil. I know it sounds crazy, but the first question, when he asked the devil to interview him, the devil said, well, if you're going to interview me, you need to address me as your majesty. And Napoleon Hill asked, why would I address the devil as his majesty? And he says, because I have control of 98% of the earthbound minds. I get them to think what I want them to think. And Napoleon asked, well, what are your tools of trade? And the devil replied, the media and politicians. And then Napoleon asked, well, who's your competition? God and those who think for themselves. Think about that.
I'm going to jump in back in there, Galen and Michael. I want to make sure I acknowledge everyone in the chat for sure on YouTube. Cindy, I see you. Shannon, Diane, thank you so much. Jason actually made a great point. We get negative images and rhetoric thoughts through the media daily, and it's important to not allow them to affect our thinking. We must think positive thoughts, and that's exactly what Michael's saying there, Anne, is that we really have to ensure that we have to get ahead of this thinking process and not let it take us and then allow it to run. You know, going back to Michael's story and the tragedy, and we've all had tragedies in our life in some form or fashion. What happened? How long did you let it go? What were the steps that you took to right the ship so that you can have a positive impact on this earth? And the great conversation. We got to pull you back in because I think Galen and I can talk with Michael until we are just all talked out.
Yeah, I read a book. Someone gave me a book called Jesus Life Coach. And there was one thing I pulled from it when I was struggling with losing my brother. And it's simply, I read it, it said, "Dear Lord, you have designed an individual set of challenge for me, specifically designed to help me grow into the fullness you have planned for me. Help me not turn away from what is before me, but move toward it with faith, trust, and fearlessness. Amen." I read that every morning, along with my self-confidence formula, along with my 6 steps for 2 years straight. And I realized that God was shining me up for more, that he needed more from me. And I watched a movie a few weeks ago, and at the end of the movie, a woman said, "God gives his biggest challenges to his strongest soldiers." So we need to embrace, anytime there's adversity, we need to hug it, embrace it, let it in, because that's God giving us a test, knowing that we're up for the challenge to grow. And it all starts with how you think. And there's been so many lessons, and I think a lot of people try to avoid the lessons and repel the lessons. Hug them, embrace them, take them in. They're there for a reason. They're there to help you grow and become more of who you need to be, because we're not here for ourselves, we're here for others. So the more we grow, we help others. And our story can help somebody with their story, and that could be the one thing that turns the switch for them to get them moving in the right direction.
What more? What more? What more could I say? Because his coach, I helped to do what she does. And so, well, I don't think there's very much I can say here because the proof is inner. It is an inner work. And oftentimes we want to work on everybody outside of us except ourselves. And I would be the first to admit that that is one of the hardest jobs that I have to do every single day, to identify what is it that I want, and then who must I become in order to achieve that. And the autosuggestion principle and the affirmations that I use for each of those areas of my life is how I do that. And this interview today with Michael, you have just, I mean, I've gotten already 7 pages of notes. That's why I've been quiet, because I have been writing down what you're saying. And Wyman put in the chat a comment, and I will read the comment that he put in the chat for the edification of everybody that's here. Wyman said early on in this interview, he said, where is it, Wyman? He made a comment about this is one of the best. Okay, let me just read what he says. If you don't condition your mind intentionally, embrace your thoughts, it leaves room for negative. That's not the one I was looking for. I'm looking for the one, and somebody can help me, Wyman. Oh, here it is. This was the best opening response statement by a guest ever. Thank you, Michael. I want to just put that in the audio in case people don't go back and read the comments. Michael, you are a walking testament of the work that you have been doing, not just on this particular principle, but like the book shares, all of these principles connecting with each other is the beginning, if you will, I think, of wisdom. So let's go back. Can you give us a way in your business? You know, we talked about your life, but can you give us a way, an example in your business of how you're using this principle? And for all of you that's listening, especially Laverne also, if you have a question for Michael or any of us, please put it in the chat. And if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please make sure you do that so you can continuously receive this awesome information every Saturday from our special guests. So Michael, any particular process you use in your business with this principle?
Well, what's interesting, Ann, you asked that question. I'm going to go back to 2019 and 2020. I was in the financial world for 20 plus years, and the financial world usually has a meltdown every decade. And in 2019, on my SWOT, when I was doing my annual plan in December, under threats, I wrote, "Don't let the outside affect the inside." And what I meant by writing that was, in case we're at 12 years, we're at 2020, the last meltdown was 2008, that's 12 years. In case the economy has some type of meltdown, I'm already preparing my mind that I am not going to let it affect my mindset, because I'm a coach and I need to be there for my clients. So as we all know, somewhere around March, April, the world started becoming unglued. And the first thing I did was I sent "Who Moved My Cheese" to all my clients. It's a great little metaphor book about you need to shift and pivot and find new cheese because the cheese that was in your little cubby hole isn't there anymore. So I immediately wanted to shift my client's subconscious mind with a little metaphor of "Who Moved My Cheese." And then I had a conversation with all my clients. I said, "Listen, I don't know exactly what's going on out there, but it's getting crazy out there. So I need everybody's commitment that you're all in and you're going to do whatever it takes to become successful. I don't care what's happening out there, but we are all going to have great years. Is everyone with me?" And they said yes. And each one of my clients stuck, and we all had good years. So I say that because for whatever reason, I preconditioned my mind. And when the world became unglued, I was already ready for it, believe it or not, and already had some principles that I could share with my clients. So if I did not write that, if I wasn't pre-programmed, if I didn't feed my client's subconscious mind at the end of the year, it could have been different. And ironically, 2020 was the same year I wrote my book, Knock It Out of the Park Leadership. And at the end of in January, my coach asked me, he goes, "So, Mr. Dill, how did you show up in 2020? I'm like, I was a tremendous leader. I led my clients through the storm because of my thinking. And, Bruce, I am the master of Knock It Out of the Park Leadership." He goes, "That sounds like a good name for a book." And my book was titled Knock It Out of the Park Leadership. So everything, like you said, Ann, it all links together. But the first step is controlling our mind accordingly and creating the little disciplines to do that. And that's it. Once we figure out how to discipline ourselves to control our mind, everything else takes care of itself.
Michael, I want to jump on in really quickly. Something you mentioned a few times is getting up in the morning and communicating messages to yourself. If you can reflect back on your journey, when did that start?
Ooh.
How might it have fallen off sometimes? How did you get back on board?
Oh, when did it start? Oh my God. Trying to think. It probably started before that, but I think in 2000, when I was a financial advisor, when the dot-com bubble hit, that was my first good kick in the teeth as an advisor. The market was melting. Then you had 9/11, and over a 2-year period, I was just miserable, not happy. The phone would ring, I would cringe. And one day I went home And I read a letter from my mom on her deathbed, and it talked about the trials and tribulations of life. And I'm going to see my mom and dad. Do not grieve that I am gone. But when you think of me with a smile. And I thought about that. I'm like, huh, I used to be a happy guy. What happened to that guy? And then the next morning, I read an article in Registered Representative magazine, and it said, it was talking about the market and how the advisors, everybody had questions, but no one had any good answers. That advisors were actually ducking their calls. They were hiding because they didn't want to talk to their clients. And it said, if you believe you're at the wrong place, the wrong time, you are. And then it said, if you believe you're in the right place at the right time, you are. And it said, if everybody has questions and everyone's ducking the answers, this is a time that you can step up and really control your future. And I got the fact that why I was stuck is because I was letting everything on the outside of my four walls control my mindset. I said, so that's where attitude, action, results came from. Attitude. Number one, the first thing we need to do each and every morning is create a discipline and get our head right. Once our head is right, then we can take the action. And back in 2020 or 2002, back then I actually had it on my phone that if in doubt, pick up the phone. Talk to my clients and talk to somebody else's clients. The only action I have to take is just talk to people. And when you get your head right and you do the right stuff, the results come. And so it all started with the principle. And once I did attitude, action, results, and I was reading Think and Grow Rich. I was doing the success formula. And the thing is sometimes in life, and I'm sure you all coaches and clients will admit, and we do the same thing. We do these little things that make us great. Then in our mind, we become great. And then for a silly reason, we stop doing the little things that got us there. And then one day we wake up and we're stuck and we're struggling and we wonder what happened. Well, it's simple. You stop doing little things that got you there. We're all athletes. Athletes work on their game. And when they stop working on the game, their game goes down to 2. So it's our job is to work on ourselves every single day to be at our best, to be in the zone. So yeah, every morning, Monday through Friday, I'm walking around the pool with my little book with all my affirmations, reading them and getting myself in the mindset because I need to be on my A game for my clients because they're waiting. Because if I let myself down and let myself off the hook, I am not showing up for my clients, and that's not right. So that's my job, and that's why God put me on this earth to serve. So if you're here to serve, you better do what you need to do to make sure you're on your A game.
All right, I see you, Galen. I see you.
I got so many questions, but I want to bring in the question from Laverne because I think it's one I can relate to. She says, asking as a mom of teenagers, how can we use autosuggestions to help our children combat negative thoughts and emotions amidst a world of negative messaging? So I've got a perspective. Michael, what are your thoughts? How can we as parents help influence our teenage kids or our kids in general to have positivity?
Leverage. As a client, and as a coach, there's 2 books I have my clients read first. The first one is Rhinoceros Success. And Rhinoceros Success was written by a 23-year-old guy many years ago. And it's all about being a rhino. And a rhino, the ears are always tilted out, picking up vibrations of opportunity. The nostrils, when it smells opportunity, it charges it down. It's got 2-inch thick skin. When it finds its prize, it's going to charge it down. It takes torpedoes, A-bombs, armies to take a rhino down. And even when they take it down, he just shakes it off, brushes off his knees, and gets back up and starts charging. So the first thing is I have a book that they read to get into their mindset. The second book they get is 212 degrees. 211 degrees is very hot water. 212 degrees is boiling water. Boiling water creates steam. Steam can power a locomotive engine. 1 degree difference, huge degree difference in outcome. So we can get books. Dr. Seuss has great books. Get books to condition our kids' mind in a fun way for them to get the message we're attempting to get to them. We have to find tools that they will embrace because let's face it, mom and dad could tell son and daughter this, that, and everything else. They're not listening. Only 20% of people are auditory. Only 2 out of 10 people are really listening. They're just waiting for us to shut up and go away so they go back with their lives. So we have to find tools to help them embrace it and learn for themselves. And we as coaches, we don't tell people what to do and how they should think. We ask them questions so they can embrace it. And once they embrace it, they own it, and only then will they move forward with it.
I have this on my desk, so I'm right there with you. 212 degrees, only 1 degree difference. Let's see, what else? Dr. Peter, gosh, what are your thoughts, man? We could spend the next 3 days
Me
talking.
I know,
think
right?
you should start landing this plane.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's go ahead. Who should start there, Ann?
You
Okay,
should
I'm
start
starting. Good
here.
stuff.
Yes.
So, Mike, what we usually do around this time when we're getting ready to fasten our seat belts and put our seats in the upright position is that we want to take a moment to reflect on this conversation, which has been so robust already. I've gotten lost in it, actually, which is why I'm glad Ann talked about landing the plane, because we have to start thinking about how we're going to close out. And what has resonated the most with me is listening to you is that last question that I asked you a little bit of was, and I'm so into affirmations, and I'm so into the words that this chapter of Napoleon Hill of Autosuggestion, the words that we are listening to, the words that we are digesting, the words that we are putting out, and hearing it from you and hearing out what it looks like in your life was inspiring to me. I have a whole lot of notes from that perspective. And I think we have to sometimes give ourselves that grace that, yes, it will and may fall off, and you may not be as consistent as you need to be with those positive words. But what does it look like to get back on the track? And it's okay to fall off, but get back on the track. And that really has resonated with me, and I'm gonna give that to myself, but also even to my clients as I continue to move forward as well. And definitely thank you so much for that recommendation, that rhinoceros success. I've heard about it. It's time for me to dive in a little bit deeper for sure. I'm going to stop talking. My name is Dr. Peter A. James. You can find me on any social media chat platform at Dr. Peter A. James. That's at DrPeterAJames. You can find me at shiftyourmindset.com, where we kind of piggyback off this Think and Grow Rich book and this phenomenal conversation by Michael about thinking before we actually can take that action. So yes, go to shiftyourmindset.com. And if you're ready to go to that next level and you need some great minds surrounding you, take a look at this hot seat coaching program that we have here. Go to shiftyourmindset.com/HSCP. You can get more detail about a hot seat coaching program that's going to talk a lot. It's going to involve you in a lot of things that we're talking about right now. Ann McNeil, phenomenal conversation. Where do we start? Where do we stop?
Well, we're going to start with the annual meeting. So let's talk about how we can impact the accountability for each of us on an annual basis. Every year, Michael, we host an annual meeting for your life based upon this book and these principles, including the children, where we come together and we bring our life in writing. This is not a conference. It is a meeting. And I like to share that it is akin to, just imagine that you are a publicly traded corporation, like many of your clients invest, Michael. So just imagine each of us as a publicly traded corporation. And on an annual basis, your stockholders, your shareholders are going to determine, will they reinvest in you based upon your earnings? And your earnings are related to the goals you set in 10 different areas of your life. And those areas are your spiritual, your family, your financial, your health, your education, your personal development, your profession, your recreation, creativity, and civic. We set those goals for 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and more. But we all come together and bring these goals in writing. So we're going to pull up the JPEG again and make sure that everybody has a chance to go to the website at internationalmasterminders.com. The dates are January 3rd and 4th, 2025. And I wanted to stay here for one moment because I was at the press club in Washington, D.C. this week for an event, and a lady walked up to me, a total stranger. I'd never seen her before, and she said, you know, I listen to your podcast every Saturday, and I am planning on bringing my family in January. And I was encouraged and inspired, and she's probably listening right now because she comes on our call on Friday for the Thinking for a Rich Friday accountability, and she's getting dressed and getting her children out. She never says anything, but she also listens to this podcast. And I share this because so many people all over the world are listening. So I don't want to rush certain parts of this program because it is life-changing. As if you could hear from what Michael is saying. And I asked Michael before the podcast started, I said, how did you hear about the podcast? He said, my coach. And I said, well, your coach? He said, yes, Bakeen. And so we want to thank you, Bakeen. If you're listening, we want to shout out to you and send you love. But this process only works if you work it and you're willing to do the internal work. So with that thought, we're going to go to Galen, and then Michael, we're going to wrap up with you and have you share, you know, how people can connect with you. But I always like to ask these two questions. What's your favorite book and why? And what's your favorite platform and why? So we're going to go to Galen first, and then we're going to come back to you, Michael, to wrap up with those answers to those two questions. Galen?
Yeah, fantastic. I think I'm going to try to see if I can remember Michael's word. Amazing show. This was an amazing conversation talking about what I believe is really the core to any success is what you say to yourself about yourself. So I've really enjoyed the conversation. My name is Galen Bingham. I'm the leadership strategist. You can find me on every platform, but the most fun platform to follow me on is to subscribe to my podcast, Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. We're on every podcast platform. We talk to leaders literally all over the world about the whiskeys they drink, the music they listen to, and what they believe it really takes to be an effective leader. I double dog dare you to try us at least once. I guarantee that you'll get something that's going to help you be a more effective leader. We've gone from releasing one episode a week to two, so definitely check us out.
All right, I do have a couple of questions. Michael, Jason Murray asked, are you still a financial advisor or have you transitioned to a business coach?
Oh, I've been a business coach for 12 years, and it's been the best move I ever made in my life. No
So
more financial advisor. I am a certified coach and have been for 12 years. That is my soul. I'm here to coach others to reach greatness.
So you transition then to answer. Okay, perfect. And Wyman says, the first step is to control your mind and create the disciplines needed to do that. And thank you, Michael. Doretha, thank you. She says, we have received so many golden nuggets today. Thanks, Michael, and our host for another phenomenal, amazing show. Cindy Johnson shares, I love the fact that the reality is we have to know our self-worth and to remind ourselves daily of that truth so that when we are facing our trials, we can find strength in knowing that truth. Thank you, everybody. This has just been, as everybody keeps saying, a phenomenal podcast today. Thank you, Diane, Sharon, Shannon, everybody for coming on. Again, remember, please comment, like, and share the podcast. Carla, Colette, everybody. Share the podcast and invite your family and friends. But also with Michael, one of the things that you've done for us today also is you've reminded us the benefit and the power of the mastermind principle and the mastermind group. So do you have anything you would like to promote, help us understand how people can connect with you? And then I'll go to my two questions.
Sure. Well, first of all, you asked what my favorite book is. It's a flip up between Think and Grow Rich and Knock It Out of the Park Leadership, the book I wrote.
like
No, I wrote a book called Knock It Out of the Park Leadership. You get that on Amazon. My website is businesscoachmichaeldill.com, and I have a YouTube channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel Monday morning with Coach Michael. I get a golden nugget every Monday morning, and once a year I do my Think and Go Rich deep dive book study. It starts on the first Tuesday night in March every year, like clockwork, and runs all the way through May and ends the last Tuesday right before Memorial Day weekend. So, and yeah, my website, YouTube channel, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all that good stuff. If you want to find me, you'll be able to find me. And I'm just here to help. I'm here in Boca Raton, Florida. So when I saw the address of your January event, I'm like, oh, that's just 15 minutes down the road. Isn't that convenient? So I'm here to help. I just want to make a difference. God put me on this planet to serve, and I'm just letting him do the work through me.
I love that. Love that. Thank you so very much. And your favorite platform?
My favorite platform is what, as far as speaking, or?
Well, platform in terms of social media.
Yeah, well, now it's YouTube right now, because that's where people get to see who I am. And a long time ago, I realized, I said, someone's going to look at me and say, I don't like that guy. Okay, no problem. I'm not going to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, lose sleep because someone didn't like me. But someone's going to say, I like his message. I want to know more about him and I want to connect with him. Well, that's my tribe. We're not here to please everybody. We're here to first please ourselves, please God, our family, and those who want to go along for the ride to achieve greatness. Come on down. Let's have some fun.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, we want to thank you so very kindly, and we want to thank everybody else who's listening. My name is Ann McNeil, and I am putting in the chat to text 59925. That number is 59925. I'm renaming myself. Text the number 59925 and put in the chat the word Ann. Yes, ANN. ANN, that's my name. And in return for that, you will receive a copy of what Michael talked about, which are the 6 steps that Napoleon Hill talks about in the instructions on how to write your affirmation. Actually, I call it my 6-point business plan. And I created a process and a system which I think shortens the learning curve on how to use this book and these principles effectively. And with that process that I've created, it is taking this principle of autosuggestion, these 6 steps, dropping it into your mastermind group and creating goals for every single area of your life. So often we only talk about the money. And the author would tell us over and over again, this process will work for any and every area of your life if you start with an affirmation. If you start with an affirmation, and that affirmation is the crux of this principle of autosuggestion, because that is how you tap into your subconscious mind through your conscious mind. And this subject is so deep that we have not begun to scratch the surface. I mean, from the book, The Master Key, from the book, The Subconscious Mind, from the book, Think and Grow Rich, from the book, the Bible, the Quran, whatever you want to call it, this principle in and of itself shares with all of us, you have 2 minds. One is your conscious, one is your subconscious. And if you're not aware, then you're not aware. And I put something in the chat that said, if your brain is incoherent, you're incoherent, because it all starts there. So Michael, you have just blessed us phenomenally today. I would like to encourage all of you, please connect with each of us, but only if you're conscious of your subconscious mind and you want to grow in every area of your life. But until next time, we want to remind everybody, please continue to remember to think and grow richer. And we will see you all next week. Peace.
Thank you.